Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Our Hearts at Home podcast, where we talk about trusting God in the midst of suffering. We're your hosts, Gary and Laura House, co-founders of the Our Hearts at Home ministry to bereaved parents.
Every one of us encounters suffering. Each week on this show, we sit down with people who have a deep understanding of suffering because they've experienced it. We hope you'll leave here with new insights into how you can trust the Lord through the painful times of your life.
So thanks for joining us. We think you're going to be encouraged by what you hear today. Well, today we welcome to the podcast our good friend, Erin Fisher. Thanks so much, Erin, for taking the time to be here today.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Erin, we're looking forward to talking with you today about your sweet son, Brody, and also a little bit about what you're doing now in leading a nonprofit organization. But before we do that, can you just introduce yourself to our listeners a little bit by sharing a little bit about yourself and your family?
Sure. Thank you. And thanks again for having me. I relish the times I can talk about my sweet boy. So thank you for that. My name's Erin Fisher. I'm originally from Chicago, so I'm a Chicago girl. My heart is with my Cubbies and my Bears all the time, no matter what the scores. But after high school, moved east for college, and then moved east a little further for law school, and non-traditionally graduated law school with a law degree and 2 children. So things started, God had a plan that was much different than mine, which was very obvious at that point. I went on to have, I have 6 children. It's Brenna, who's my oldest, and then Denny, and then Brody was number 3. Mallory came shortly after him, and then I had twins in 2003. So all the kids are grown adults, have careers, or are finishing college right now. And I spend a lot of time checking up on them and poking their lives a little bit and stuff. But after all the kids came, after law school, basically, I was staying at home and taking care of the kids and really trying to figure out how I was going to use that law degree in conjunction with being a mom. And then it became very obvious that I was going to be home with the kids for a lot longer than I expected. And what a blessing that was. I love being a mom. I just absolutely loved it. I love it today. But as they were growing, I was fascinating by watching them grow and learn, and they're intricate little personalities. And when it was time to send them to school, they went to a little school for a little bit. And then I felt like as a mom, I was being driven by the needs of everyone else. Mm-hmm. So whatever the school schedule was, I needed to follow. Whatever the sports schedule was, I needed to follow. And I was becoming miserable in being a mom. It was waking up in the morning and yelling about getting on the shoes and being in the car on time and all those things. And finally, we had a discussion about, what's the alternative? There were a few families homeschooling, and we decided that might be something to try. And it was the best thing I think I've ever done. We pulled the kids, 3 of them were in school. So Brenna had just finished 3rd grade, Denny was just finishing 1st grade, and Brody had just finished the pre-K program there. And all the kids are within 7 years of each other. So we were like a little school pod wherever we went. And we started with a couple different programs and took it from there, and just spent time traveling and visiting family and learning new things and just enjoying every moment we had together. I could have never asked for a better life at that time in my life. It was absolutely fantastic. And then from that, I started teaching, and I was teaching. That's where I met you, Laura. I started teaching little classes and got more into it and started tutoring and so forth. So I did that for a long time. I'm still doing that on a private basis. So in 2019, I was at church, and there was an advertisement for a conference about human trafficking. And my bachelor's degree was in criminology. And in law school, we never really talked about anything related to human trafficking either. So I thought, well, that's kind of an odd topic to be talking about. So I went to this conference, and it was really an eye-opener to me. It was about how gang-controlled trafficking was really prevalent in the United States, and particularly outside of the DC metro, in the DC metro area. And that was where I was raising my kids. And that was right, there were the schools that they were talking about, that, and the gangs they were talking about the news that were in our communities. And so I stepped in and volunteered to be part of the organization. And at that time, it was called Just Ask Prevention. And worked with them, worked with building curriculum and writing some curriculum and programs for communities to be able to present and spread awareness. And then COVID hit. And once COVID hit, I think at that point, that was that point in my life where my world just unraveled. But one blessing from that came my relationship with the human trafficking prevention program that we were working on. And I ended up going back to that in 2021. And that's where I'm working right now, pretty much on a full-time basis. So part of the unraveling of my after COVID was I had gone through a divorce, and at that point, four of my children were already in college, and the twins were going to college at that point. And I pretty much ran to a different place. I didn't want to stay where all the good memories were. And I moved to Montana. And there was some logic to it. My mom was from Wyoming. We have a cabin up in the Bighorn Mountains, and I wanted to be closer to that place that I found so peaceful and healing. And that's the place I feel closest to God. I've always felt just his presence when I'm up there. And but that's what I did. I ran and got away from everything that was my normal for 30 years. So, and here I am.
So you're, what do they call in Montana? You're not a Montanan? Is that what you are? I'm not sure what you are yet.
I don't know. I don't know that they would allow me to call myself a Montanan yet.
Okay, but it's
only been a few years, so you have to kind of make your way.
Yeah,
so.
Gotcha.
Well, you've shared a lot with us. Had a wonderful family, a lot of kids, but want to focus on one right now for the next few minutes. Introduce us, if you could, to Brody, and just help us to get to know him a little bit better. Share with us maybe a little bit about his personality and what were some of his interests.
Sure. My sweet boy. And I call him my sweet boy because he really was just the sweetest little boy. And even his older brother would not be offended that I said he was so opposite from his older brother. He was just a sweet, sweet boy. From the time he was born, he just was always caring for, just cared about what was happening and who, if anybody needed help, and just had this very beautiful, sweet spirit about him. He was exceptionally smart. And I know people say that about their kids, he was one of those kids that was really the biggest impetus that we were finding to moving him into a different schooling environment, because he was such a voracious reader at such a young age. And when he'd learn something, he'd want to learn all about it. And then he teamed up with my mother, who is equally as just gifted in intelligence. And the two of them would just have she would call it Camp Cracker, where she'd invite the kids to, because they called her Graham Cracker for a while. And she said, you come over and we're going to do some work and we're going to learn. And he and her grew together, had this beautiful bond of just learning. That was his passion. He just couldn't get enough of it. And thanks to that passion, he went on, graduated high school when he was 16. And we had a really hard time deciding if it was going to be the right move to move him into college. At that point, he was, he was younger than his peers in so many ways, but he was so much older than those kids that were in his grade. And we worked with a counselor, and we were, talking through the pros and the cons of it, and decided, he was going to go. He would turn 17 a couple months after, and he went to Virginia Tech as an aerospace engineer major, and his passion was flying. It was anything about planes and flying. He had an obsession with wing flaps that I always teased him about. Like, there's so much more cool stuff about a plane except for the wings flaps. And he'd say, no, Mom, you don't know that it's how great it is. But he loved dogs. He loved our little beagle, Winnie. He worked and volunteered at the animal shelter while he was in high school. He would be the first kid that pick up and go do a community project if needed. And the first one to go and help his sisters if they were in any kind of need. Brody had, and this I think kind of stemmed from the fact that he didn't feel like he fit in one group. The homeschooling environment was so good for him because you weren't put in groups of ages.
Yeah.
But he still felt out of place. And I think I know that caused him some great anxiety, feeling different, and really being nervous about keeping friendships. And we noted that as he was getting a little bit older, going through puberty and having these struggles, and we worked with him. We did find a counselor that was really good with him and was able to kind of walk him through and walk us through some of the things that we could do to help him not feel like he was different from everyone else. When he went to tech, it felt like he found his right place. He found great friends. He found a wonderful community, the teachers, and just his friends just said all the same things that we knew about him and remember him that way. But I think at a certain point, it became very difficult for him to manage, I think, just the thoughts that were going on in his head. And he took his life in January. It was January 25th, 2021. And never, ever saw it coming, ever. It just was such a shock to us, especially knowing he was getting the help that he had needed. Later, we found out that there were other attempts that he had made, but unfortunately, because of where he was at the time and HIPAA laws, they weren't share that. And nor did they share it with the school. It was during a time where he was on a study abroad program, and nothing was shared about it. And had we known, you think back, and if I would have known, I don't know that it would have changed it, but if I would have known, maybe it would have been a little different. But regardless, we miss him so much. And gosh, every year we try very hard. I'm sure it's very amusing to the people watching, but we always try to light a lantern in his memory on that day. But it's way too windy and cold in Montana. Chicago people have been trying unsuccessfully. Once caught a tree on fire.
Oh, no.
Can't say that we're honoring his memory maybe as well as we'd like to, but it's.
Yeah, we've never tried that. They look really neat when people are successful at getting them to go up. They look really neat.
They also make it look very easy to do.
They really do. Yeah.
Not.
Was Brody a senior? What year was he in school?
Yes, he was. So he was, he was in his senior year. So he was in a program where he would get his diploma and then have one more year for master's degree. So he was like in a combination program.
Yeah.
But he would have graduated with his undergrad in that June.
Yeah.
Or that May, I guess.
Okay.
Well, I'm amazed at a lot of the similarities because
Mm.
Nathan loved to fly. He had his pilot's license before he had a driver's license. It was electrical engineering, so a little different.
Mhm.
There are a whole lot of similarities, their personalities, all of that. You know, there among our listeners, a lot of them have lost children, and a lot of people listening are very new to the
Mm.
journey of child loss. And I'm just wondering if you can share just a little bit about your journey. So, and how you have seen the Lord hold you through that. That's just so encouraging to people that are just, you know, you're just in shock and numb, and there's nothing worse, in my opinion, that could ever happen to us. So,
I agree. And I tell everybody, I would have never gotten through this without faith and without people praying for me. I don't know how I would have managed. Um, it is a journey. It is still a journey. That first year was, I really don't remember a lot of that first year. I do remember moving. I remember, um, every little thing I'd pick up that reminded me of him, I would have to sit and stop and think and just give myself that time. Um, you know, when I think of it, I think of it of me personally, but then at the same time, I'm still a mom. I'm still a mom to 5 other kids who've lost their brother.
yeah.
And that that was really hard. And I don't know that I did that very well, to be honest. It is hard. It was hard to get out of my own grief and to be able to sit with them in their grief, because it was so heartbreaking to see them go through that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was, and at that time Brody's dad was there and we were all involved in that piece, and trying to just help lift each other up was difficult, but prayer and really lots of crying out to God. I'm sure crying out isn't maybe a nice way of me saying that sometimes I was downright just angry and yelling.
Sure.
And it wasn't until about a year afterwards where I realized, through some really good friends, and just sitting and reading God's word, and being, my dear sister uh, gave me so many books to go through, and her prayers, I know, were lifted up all the time for me. But I realized that God hadn't abandoned me, that he was carrying me through this. And then he was carrying my kids through it, and that he was there. Um, and his heart, his love for me filled my heart, with a lot of love and compassion. And I think that the easiest way for me to think about it is the first part of that journey was just filled with so much pain and despair, and really just a loss of who I was, and just my kids around me. And then there was this healing that allowed me to kind of see where God had been the whole time.
Mhm.
And that part is humbling, because I really felt lost and didn't give him the benefit of being right there with me. So a lot of things change. I have to say that I still have the grief brain that
Mhm.
everybody talks about. It's a real thing.
Lasts a
It
long
is,
time.
yeah, and it doesn't, I just had a conversation with somebody earlier this morning about it, about just, physiologically, things change when you suffer a trauma, when you suffer a loss like that. Those things, it changes the chemical makeup, and it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
right? It's not, we're not, the world expects you to just get back up on your horse and ride off, but that's not the right thing. You need to give yourself some grace and really, work with, be around people that support and understand. Even the people that didn't understand were fine, because they would say, I just know to be with you. I
Yeah.
just know I can sit with you.
Isn't that great when you have someone who doesn't want to tell you what to do, but they
Oh,
just want to grieve with you? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are the best. Those are the best friends.
So such a blessing, such a blessing. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's not uncommon to hear grieving parents say after a while, it's not the first couple of years, um, but after a while say, I'm a better person because of what happened. I wish it didn't take this to make me the new person that I am and have the new identity I have, but I am a better person. How has your loss changed you in that way?
Just, so I feel like I truly understand what it means that everybody is born or within the image and likeness of God.
Mhm.
And that we all, we are all valuable. Every human being on this planet has value. And there's this piece of me that just wants to lead with love. I used to be very, I moved to DC because I was very interested in getting into politics and doing things on a bigger scale. And I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. That changed a little before Brody, but the hate and the vitriol and the one-upmanship and just the negativity that goes on, my heart breaks for humanity. It just is heartbreaking when you have experienced such a visceral loss, right? And I think, as parents, a piece of our heart is with that child, right? And when they leave, it really feels like your heart is broken. I was fascinated looking back at how much those sayings really meant something.
Mhm.
But I I I can't go through my days being angry and disappointed. I really just it's leading with love that kind of carries me through. Um and that's a profound change. I wouldn't say that I wasn't leading with love, but I didn't understand
Yeah.
the true meaning of love
Yeah.
until I lost it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we change ourselves in that way. And we also, I think, in our situation anyway, found that we changed in terms of our understanding of God and his purposes. And we learned more about the character of God. We'd read about it in scripture. Cognitively, we knew who God was, but there was just so much more that we began to experience about the character of God and new aspects of his character that we recognized. And we also um, came to a point where we knew all we could do was trust him. And that might have been the biggest lesson so far in our walk is where else can we turn? Only to Jesus. And when we can't find all of the answers to the questions we have, after we've done all that detective work and come up without it, what we're really looking for, all we can do is trust him.
Yeah.
So how has that part of your journey been? Anything really significant that you learned about God and his character that you hadn't been aware of before, and some of the things that you've learned more in your own life spiritually?
I think what I've learned is that I didn't listen very well. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention
Mhm.
to the answers to prayer that I got before. I think I assumed the answers were going to be what I wanted and what I needed before. And now I look at how I pray and how I communicate and how much differently I trust him.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't know how I would ever feel normal again. And again, I say that, and I know that there are listeners that are at that point where like you'll never feel, and I'll never be the same person I was, but there's a normalcy where you walk alongside with that memory and you smile and you think, I'm so blessed to have had 21 years with that boy. Yeah, I was so blessed to have Brody for 21 years. What a gift, what a blessing. And I think that I don't look at this as like God took him from me, right? I don't look at it as you took him away. But I see God as standing next to me, understanding the sorrow, that I'm going through. And, I imagine that, Mary felt the same pain and sorrow when she watched her son die on the cross. And I imagine that, there was sorrow in God's heart that this had to happen, but for the sake of us, right? So it makes the story that I was told my whole life so much bigger and so much more real. And it's humbling. It's humbling, I guess. And I will never, for the rest of my life, it'll be different, but I know that God is there and he is with me. He's with my kids. It has changed my children. A lot of them have turned away from God and have been just angry about it. And, I continue to pray for them, and I know their dad prays for them every day. But I think they're on their journey, and I know God's with them. I know that he's with them during this, and he will make something beautiful happen from this. Yeah.
I know we say a lot that it seems at the beginning that grief is kind of like you have dark glasses on, totally black glasses. And you a lot of times people just can't see that God is there, kind of what you were saying before, because you can't see, everything's dark. And then as time goes by, it gets a little lighter, the lens is a little lighter, a little lighter. And it's such a wonderful moment, as you expressed, when you realize, oh, wait a minute, he's been here all along. And so if someone's listening today and you feel those dark glasses on and you can't see or you can't feel the Lord there, he's there. It's the grief that's causing you to not feel him or realize that. So hopefully you can just trust he is there.
Yeah.
And there will come a time where you feel that, and you're able to see that so much better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Before we switch gears for just the last few moments, is there anything else you want to share about Brody? Just anything else you want to say? We could probably talk for the next 500 hours.
So many little things about him that I love, just love, love, love. I don't know what, just anything specific I would say more than what I've already said. He was such a considerate and just wonderful human being. And one of the things, again, we talk about how do you kind of come out of this? I know that there were many times in his short life that he touched the hearts of other people, and that, he did leave a mark on this world that was very positive. And I don't ever want people to remember him by how he died, but by how he lived, because he had such a beautiful soul and shared that with so many people. And when he passed away, one of the saddest things I remember dealing with were the volunteers at the animal shelter, and just how they just loved Brody so much, and he loved those little animals, and I think of him just, bringing that. I know that brought him so much joy, but like, they saw such a beautiful little young boy. I mean, he was probably 14 when he was working there, and they just, their heart just was warm when he would be there. And those are the things that I hope people remember him by. Sweet, sweet boy. That's just a sweet boy.
You said earlier something about how now you can just be really thankful that you had 21 years. And again, if someone's listening and you're at the beginning of this journey, there comes a point, and it's different for everybody, but we're very grateful that we look at Nathan's life and with pure joy. There's still moments of grief. There always will be,
Oh,
always,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
of the kids. But we're not mourning. We're not in mourning anymore. And we can look at his life with just such gratitude that we were his parents and just all the joy.
I think it's important too to know that, you know, for instance, my oldest, my first child got married this year, and outside of that first Christmas, which I remember being very difficult, Denny's wedding was something that was it was a very obvious time that Brody was not there,
Yeah.
and it brought up those emotions and that sadness again, that this is one event that he is missing, and there will be so many more.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought the way that the kids handled it was so beautiful, and just really being not keeping it a secret, not making sure that nobody talked about it, but to recognize, you know, that we miss him, and he's, you know, we miss that his physical presence isn't here with us.
Yeah.
And those moments will creep up, and it's okay
Yeah.
that for those who are going through this and are new, it's okay to
Yeah.
be sad, and it's okay to miss them.
Yeah.
But it will, and there will be those places on your journey for probably the rest of your life, but we'll see them again.
Yes.
And that you get to a point where you can appreciate the fact that there's hope at the end of this, that will be reunited with our sweet boys
And
and girls.
Yep.
we look forward to that very much every day.
Yeah. Yeah. But we've got more time on earth. I know that, you know, God has left us here you guys are doing such a beautiful job and a ministry that just is so needed. For parents, I talked to a lot of parents in the grief group that I go to here locally that they just don't have that support. They don't have that, those people that have the time or just even the compassion enough to give them a listening ear. So we're a community that we never wanted to be a part of, but
For sure.
there's beautiful things that can come out of being in this as well.
Well, and the Lord's using you as long as you're still down here on earth too, in a different way. Can you share just a couple of minutes? We want to put in the show notes a link to the website. And
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
you mentioned it earlier when you were talking a little bit about what you do and who you are, but
Yeah.
I'd also just like to know, how can people listening get involved?
Yeah, so Anti-Trafficking International is the organization. The website is preventht.org. And what our primary focus is on prevention awareness. Human trafficking is happening all over the world. It looks very different in different parts of the world. But in the United States, it is happening in every region of the United States. We've seen a rise in gang controlled trafficking in urban areas. Familial trafficking grew astoundingly during COVID, and now that everybody knows how to work the internet and social media and so forth, it's just grown and become a very evil place in a lot of cases for the buying and selling of people and images and so forth. And labor trafficking is definitely something that is going on in the United States as well as around the world. So ATI develops curriculum. We deliver community-based programs to give just really an awareness of what it looks like reality-wise in the United States, in local areas. And we work also with training people who are on the front line, so healthcare workers, law enforcement, social services, places, foster care facilities. A lot of kids that are in and out of the foster care system have been either subject to sexual abuse or some form of trafficking. And so those types of awareness programs can help them better relate with the kids. Trauma-informed care is such an important piece right now to understand about the trauma that others have gone through. And, you know, when we found out about Brody's death, there was that trauma, that shock that we went through. But again, I can empathize in a way with how trauma can affect you, but the kind of trauma that some people are subjected to as far as the human trafficking world goes is just, there are no words to describe it. So, so we love to get people on board to help present community awareness events in their communities, to get curriculum prevention in their churches or in schools. We have a faith-based curriculum as well as regular public school curriculum. It's just a lesson that is taught during like a health and PE type education course. So it's just important that we talk about it. It's kind of like what we're doing here, right? If I can divert a little bit, I found out that in my grandmother's family, I knew my grandmother had lost a child, and he died while he was in utero. So she had a stillborn, basically, but no one talked about it because it was taboo. You didn't talk about having a dead child. You didn't talk about your child dying. And I thought, my gosh, how in the world did my poor grandmother walk this earth for another 40 years and never talk about baby Joey?
Wow.
All we knew about him was that he died when he was born, and that was it. That was it. And I think about, we don't talk about suicide very much. We don't talk about, we're finally talking about mental health and depression and anxiety and the realities of that you're not weak. It's a chemical imbalance. It is a medical issue. And I think about, you know, prevention of human trafficking is the same thing that what we're doing here. You need to be talking about it because people don't have the words to be able to identify, that's how I felt. That was okay. That's not okay, right? Those things, that's how education empowers us all. It's by talking about it and knowing really what it is that we should be looking for. Awareness is such an important piece of that. So
I can see that. After looking at the website too, I was just astounded at statistics. And we were talking about it earlier. And then I think one spot on the website talks about only 1% are rescued of people being trafficked. Well, this is why there has to be the prevention end, because, you know, look at the people that are trapped and the chances of rescuing them is clearly not very high.
Right.
So again, it's something that, you know, I've heard about, but until I really went digging into your website and reading statistics, I didn't really understand the magnitude of this. So we will definitely, you know, we'll put some information there in the show notes, and looking forward to people checking that out and seeing how they can get involved in local community.
Very good. And they can email the info@prevent.org, and I will be most likely the person that answers your email.
Oh, wonderful.
It's part of the job. So,
Well, this has been great, Erin. Thank you so much for sharing. And we always want to end with a scripture because we believe that there's nothing more powerful than the Word of God. Ultimately, He is the only one who can truly comfort our broken hearts. So to close out today, is there a favorite verse that you have that's been helpful to you during your grief journey?
Yeah. Can I share two?
Sure can.
I had a hard time. So the one that helped me the most in the beginning was Revelations 21:4, and it's, He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. So much hope in that. This is the one that I live by today. This is my favorite. In all that you do, be done in love.
Great.
Great.
It's all about love.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so grateful.
It's been wonderful to visit. Thanks.
Thank you.
The Our Hearts Are Home ministry to bereaved parents is solely funded by generous supporters like you.
To partner with us to reach grieving parents with the hope found in Christ, visit ourheartsarehome.org.